you talk about what can be gained apart from the personal kudos or legacy. I kind of think there's a legacy element here to Nancy Pelosi's comments and decisions. Even within Singapore, you know, a statement was released by the Ministry of Home Affairs about Nancy Pelosi commenting on LGBTQ community in Singapore at a very volatile time for Singapore on this issue. Now, I'm very careful not to conflate the two issues here, but it's, again, the idea is a foreign diplomat going into a country and commenting on country's domestic issues. It does give it. You're provoking the stick. You're interfering in issues that don't concern you. There's a fine line between, in this particular instance, diversity within the workplace and looking like political advocacy in somebody else's country. What is Nancy Pelosi doing this week?
Well, look, I mean, on this issue, Nancy Pelosi is not a diplomat. Nancy Pelosi is the third-ranking person in the United States government. And Nancy Pelosi says, when we, the United States, travel around the world, we talk about the things that matter to us, that are important to us. And we talk about, and she said, we talk about fighting anti-Semitism wherever we go. We talk about discrimination against the LGBTQ community, as well as other human rights priorities where we go and where that's relevant. And she said, because Singapore is such a vibrant place, because so many people are coming here, we, the United States, want them to come here without an obstacle, right? That is what she said. And then where Singapore took issue was that this message was delivered to the business community. And she said she wants the business community to deliver the message that to attract the very best people, we have to be respectful of married couples and marriage equality. This is where the Ministry of Home Affairs came out. And then they cautioned the foreign business community, said, if diversity is important to you as a company, that's great, but you are not supposed to be crossing a line to talk about social issues in Singapore. We handle those ourselves. Yeah. And that's where it ended up.
And that's a fair point.
And I think, you know, I was in front of her when she was speaking those comments, and I think she was very much I think she was very much. I was
going to ask you, was she asked the question and she was just responding?
No, it was just her comments. But she was very much addressing an American audience, you know, American business audience in Singapore, talking to them. And I didn't get the sense that she was lecturing anybody, you know, outside of that room, right? You know, talking about what the U.S. stands for and believes in, but there was no this other country should do this or this other country should do that from my recollection, my perspective.
Yeah, so, and the issue for the business community is you know, if you're going to set up a regional headquarters wherever it is, right? If you're going to are you allowed to bring all of your employees to that country? Or are they going to be obstacles? And that's the word she used, right? Are there going to be obstacles to having them come here? And then that becomes a decision the businesses have to make for themselves. And this is where Singapore is drawing the line in this statement that was released from the Ministry of Home Affairs. You do what you want as a business, but you do not cross the line into telling Singapore how it should be addressing its laws on what would be, right? The quote is, right, that these are matters for Singaporeans to discuss and come to a consensus on how to move forward. And so did MHA have to release that statement in a result to what Speaker Pelosi said? Speaker Pelosi does deliver that message. She delivers it everywhere. So I do think she has to deliver that message. And then the question is, what is the fallout and what should the Singapore government be doing and what should businesses be doing?
But on that point, just briefly, you know, yourselves are involved with the American Chamber of Commerce. You make those comments, it's fine. But as you said yourself, third ranking official, United States House Speaker makes those comments. It's impossible. It's very difficult not to infer there's a political advocacy element to it, regardless of the context and the audience. And that's why I think she has to be very sensitive. And you talk about whether it does more harm than good. The comments I saw online to response to those stories actually does do more harm than good, because it plays into the stereotypes. This is Western values being imposed. This is Western lifestyle choices being imposed. It added so much fuel to an unnecessary fire at a very, very sensitive juncture in Singapore right now with regards to 377A. I think, like Taiwan, maybe it would have been better. Maybe it would have been better, because it's just added a lot of unnecessary fuel to a very volatile fire.
And I think you would find many, and maybe you would even say most diplomats would agree with you on that as well. The timing was not, it's always the right time to stand up for what you believe in as a person or what you believe in as a country. Not a problem there. But at this moment in time, in this region, were those two issues really...
We'll just flip it for a second. Let's just imagine, for argument's sake, it was a far-right Republican politician speaking to business leaders in Singapore and saying, we must support pro-life, anti-abortion sentiments in Singapore. The backlash would have been huge. Would that be fair to say?
No, of course.
It would be considered political advocacy in the same way.
It's the question is, when you are the United States government, part of what we do is we stand up as the government, right, for human rights. And the United States government considers, LGBTQ rights to be a human right. And I would contest that this is not a Western construct. There are plenty of other countries, not Western, that recognize those rights as well. And so you have the political questions. When is the time to bring it up? Do you bring it up behind closed doors? Do you bring it up to a business community? Do you tell the business community they should be delivering a message from the United States? That's where I think you can have a really legitimate argument about, is this going to advance what Nancy Pelosi wants to advance, what the United States government wants to advance, what most businesses want to advance from their headquarters perspective. Yeah. That's the timing is a legitimate question to ask. Is this going to do more harm than good? I think this is going to not be relevant to the debate that happens in Singapore. The Singaporeans are going to decide this clearly, and this isn't going to
Which was the point. And this isn't going to statement.
And this isn't going to influence it one way or the other.